So, what is one of the number one drivers of valuation that Warren Buffett actually uses to evaluate whether he's going to invest in a company or not? Let me come back to that in a moment. But first of all, welcome here from St. Louis, Webster University, where my daughter Jade, 22, just graduated with her fine arts degree in acting. And by the way, there may be some jokes there, but the research is clear that arts majors actually end up outperforming engineers in terms of what they make over a lifetime. And so I have no doubt she's going to do well. But let's get back to this key driver, and that is pricing power. And that is, how much pricing power does that organization, that company have to set it either low enough to be hugely competitive in the marketplace because they've got an advantage over the cost side, or they're able to charge whatever it is they need to charge because what they do is so niched and so needed, and literally they've got a moat around the organization that they can charge whatever they need to. So first of all, on a scale of 0 to 5, where do you feel like you are in terms of pricing power? 0 being, man, we don't really have any control. We're in a commodity industry. It's what we might technically call a shitty business too. You're a 5 where they absolutely so badly need you. It's a little bit like NVIDIA, that you can charge what you need. And so that's why one of the very first investments, he still has it today, Warren Buffett made, is in Coca-Cola. If you think about it, the idea of pricing power is they can charge whatever they need to depending on the location and the timing. So look, if you can wait to go out to a suburban shopping mall, then maybe you're going to pay something less than $1 per half a liter. Then it's going to ramp on up depending on the convenience to where, man, you want a Jack and Coke there in your hotel room, you're going to pay 5. And think about it, if you're at a sporting event or a concert, it could be 10x that dollar. And if you think through it, it's like a triangle of profit that you're able to extract from that marketplace. I want to come back to that. And what is then the number one driver of pricing power? And that is innovation. The good news is you don't need a lot of them. As Warren Buffett said on the 60th anniversary of Berkshire Hathaway, that over 60 years he's made mainly a good dozen decisions. So roughly one every 5 years. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an innovation with the product or service, but mostly with the business model. So let's go to SpaceX. And the key is that you want to be able to have an advantage around what is the constraint of the industry. And clearly, for SpaceX to really have been able to ramp up that industry, they needed to get their costs down. And so the innovation, the reusable rocket. So we saw in 2015, they were able to actually land that booster. 4 years later, they then landed in 2019, all 3 boosters of the Falcon. But still, it was landing far from the launch pad. It's heavy, it's expensive, it's time consuming. And so the goal is, how do they be able to turn around launches every 30 minutes? And so we saw in 2024 something amazing, where those booster came in and landed right on the landing pad. So they've got this opportunity, that kind of advantage in terms of cost. And then their workhorse, the Raptor, started at 2 million. It got down to 1 million. Raptor 2, Raptor 3 is said to cost maybe a 200,000. So there's that internal 10x advantage we talk about. We call the X factor, that's critical for you to have internally over your competition. And so that was SpaceX's advantage. If we look at Amazon, their real innovation was in the business model. The fact that they really made it so easy, one click. They literally trademarked it, they patented it, and that really allowed them to have pricing power to the point where many of you know that you could actually purchase something for less if you went direct. I tried it with Best Buy versus Amazon, and look, I don't mind paying $5 more per the light bulb. I was looking for a lighting system for the home because they made it so easy for me to purchase it, and I had too many of the wrong bulb and made it easy to return. Yet they weren't really addressing the true constraint that was holding back e-commerce. By the way, it was stuck at about 3% of total retail until they understood what was the real psychological constraint, and that was the shipping costs. Look, it wasn't It wasn't logical, but people just didn't want to pay. They'd say, look, I'll just stop on the way home from work or to work, even though it would take more time and maybe more cost. It was then when Amazon introduced Prime, which, by the way, fixed two constraints. First, it took away that psychological constraint of shipping costs, and all of a sudden it unleashed e-commerce, and they had not made a profit for almost 2 decades, and this allowed them to load up on cash. And so that was their innovation. For those of you familiar with Costco's really only had one innovation, and that is their ability to charge a fee to give you the right to come on in and do shopping. And last year in 2024, those membership fees represented 2/3 of their profitability. Now, if 2/3 of your profit is coming from fees, then you can price aggressively everything else that you sell within the store. That gives you pricing power. If we look then at IKEA realized that the key constraint is that you're having to both ship and store air. And so they've really had just one innovation they've continued to improve on, and that is dominating the flat pack segment of the industry. And as a result, that's allowed them to have, tremendous profitability relative to the rest of the industry. And I was just with EO Atlanta celebrating their 30th anniversary, and one of the early members there was Sarah Blakely with Spanx. She scaled that and exited for $1 billion. Her new business is Sneaks. And she said, look, there's just one innovation. I'm going to take a tennis shoe that's much more comfortable, and I'm going to put a heel on it. First, I love the name Sneaks. And number two, hey, it's not for everyone, but remember, Starbucks only has 4% of the overall market to coffee that is sold retail in the morning. You don't have to have a lot of percentage in order to be able to do a tremendous amount of revenue and drive valuation. But in her case, she's got the one innovation, and let's see if she can reach that number of women. And so the key is in driving your ability to drive valuation is pricing power, and the key to pricing power is innovation. Now, let's get back to pricing. And there the guru is Herman Simon. He founded a company called Simon Kucher. They've got about 4,000 consultants all over the world. They do about $600 million a year in just one thing, pricing consultancy. And my recommendation first, get his books, Confession of a Pricing Man. And I love the subtitle, Price Affects Everything. And if you dig into his theory, in essence, what he shows is that like the unicorns, and I really think we've got to begin to think about pricing like the unicorns. There are these companies that get to $1 billion in valuation a little bit quicker than us mere mortals. They don't have any idea of a fixed price. If you think about taxis, it's so much per eighth of a mile, but Uber and Lyft, they're charging you based on demand. Man, they'll get you to the Taylor Swift concert inexpensively, but try to get home. Same with Amazon, by the way. My book will vary tremendously in price depending on the day, the demand, the time of the year, and it's almost counterintuitive. If your book doesn't sell well, they actually raise the price because they figure, look, if somebody really wants it, what's an extra $5? But if it's like Mel Robbins' book right now, Let Them Theory, selling 10,000 copies a day, they want to price very aggressively. So you're going to get it from them instead of stopping by the bookstore or seeing it there at the airport. And so with the unicorns, there is no price. It varies based on demand, which is why you've got to learn more about the demand side of the business than on the supply side. And so we've got a client. They're in what you might technically call a shitty business. That is the selling and installation of structural steel. And they decided to innovate their business model. By the way, you can tell by their tagline, when you needed it yesterday. So rather than bid on these billion-dollar building projects in New York City, they monitor them. And when they find that one of the people who won the contract's in trouble, and these penalties can be $1 million to $2 million a day, they arrive and save the day. And by the way, what can they price? Whatever the market will bear at that moment. So to finish up, I happen to be in Auckland, New Zealand. I was doing an event today for both EO and YPO. And as luck would have it, one of the YPO women in the audience said, look, I know those guys. I was leading a $1 billion building project in New York City, and I get the call that our steel supplier is going to now be late 6 weeks. Her penalty, $2 million a day. And so she simply gave our client a call. They were able to deliver over a weekend. And I can tell you, this company has got software-like margins in a really boring, tough business. And so what you want to do is you want to figure out, how do you extract this triangle of profit? Because if you have a fixed price mentality, you're only pulling out a rectangle and leaving a lot of money on the table. So again, Coke is able to vary that price depending on location and how easily and quickly you need it. One of the companies sells industrial gas, these kind of 50-liter standard bottles. What they do is they vary the price based on how long you sit on their fixed asset. Man, if you can burn through that gas, 1 bottle in a day, you literally can get it for a third than what it would cost if you're going to sit on it 100 days. One last example. So I was down in EO Quito, and one of the guys in the audience came up to EO members and he said, Verne, I'm in a shitty business. I sell and distribute electrical cable. You've given me an idea. I provide such great service that my customers have learned they can just wait to the last minute to order it, and it just drives my company and my people crazy. So what we decided to do, based on what you shared, is let's set kind of an everyday low price that you'll get if you're willing to give us 60 days to deliver on it. If it's going to be 30 days, it'll be more. And if you need it next day, it's going to be higher. That way we can get the triangle of profit instead of that rectangle. And we can use profit like Dell used to make sure that you bought what they have and didn't buy what they didn't have, so that you can have consistent throughput, both in supply and in this electrical cable company's case, with their people. So they can have a set of steady orders and they let the customer control the price. So the key to driving valuation, one of them is pricing power. One of the keys to pricing power is to be innovative. Many of it's both with the product or with the business model itself. And then you want to use that pricing power to extract a triangle worth of profitability instead of just the rectangle that most companies do in a marketplace. Good luck out there and keep scaling.